So here we are in Photoshop. I'm going to take a Photoshop file and move it into After Effects to animate it. You can do a couple things to save yourself a lot of time and headache in Photoshop by setting up the file. So here's kind of a photo mashup I did, but it's not a video format size. It's a kind of photo size. So I want to reformat that to save myself some time in After Effects. The way that I can reformat this to save myself some time in After Effects is in Photoshop. I can go File, and I'm going to go New. And then in the New area, I'm going to make a new document, and you see it's got film and video presets already done. So if I click on this, it's got everything like from 4K to 1080. So again, I don't recommend using 4K. It's just going to be juggernaut on your computer. So just go to the HD 1080p if you're learning stuff. Like if you're a fancy filmmaker, you want to go 4K, sure, go for it. But when you're just learning stuff, this is going to be much easier on everything. So 1080p, go create. And then this gives you the dimensions. So this basically essentially gives you the same dimensions as a YouTube video file screen or Vimeo file screen. If you're doing something like Instagram TV, that's more vertical video, then you'd have to reformat that to that way. So that's what I did for this file here. I just went New, Film Video, 1080p. So I had my original here, and then I made my new one, and then all I did was went over here to the original, to the layers I wanted to bring over, and drag them over into the new file format size. The other thing too is when I drag this around, everything's not linked together. So that's happening to you. You can shift select the file, the different layers, and then link them together, and now this will move around together. So you see this one that I brought over to, this is much bigger, and I got to reformat it. So I just scaled it down. I hit Command T and then scaled that down, and then you could reformat your layout to whatever it is that you want. If you're bringing over something in a folder or a group, you want to ungroup those layers before bringing them into After Effects. Go right click and then say ungroup layers, and then you have all the layers separated out of the folder or group, which is what I did here. So you have all your layers separated outside of here. I recommend labeling it, like here's the head right there, there's Dino, and then everything's labeled for me when I'm ready to bring it into After Effects to animate. I'm going to bring in the project that I made, the student mashup project that I made at a 1080p file format. So right click, import file. Here's the student mashup, and this should be the right 1080p file format. So I don't want to bring it in as footage. Composition, retain layer sizes, create composition to save myself time. Go OK, open. Make sure you can edit the layers here. Everything's good. Go OK. So now you see it's brought in. It brought in the Photoshop layers here in this folder, and it brought it in as a composition right here for me. So if I double click this, my composition's already set up for me. So that's why it's good to plan ahead a little bit. Plan your Photoshop file with the video format size that you want, and then you just bring it as a composition. It's all done. They've stacked the layers here. They've mirrored the Photoshop file for you already. And then let's say, just looking at some of the stuff we did before, I'm going to animate the head quickly. I can go the head, go the transform. I could just throw on all these anchor points, or sorry, I could just throw on all of these keyframes here. And then I could try, like, say, scaling the head up, rotating the head like this maybe. There you go. You want to get a little bit more experimental with the head. You could go up into effects, and you could check out different like things to generate on the head, simulate on the head, or the distort area sometimes is kind of neat. You can throw on, I'll just throw on this flow motion. You can animate weird things like this, just come in and you can start throwing on different effects if you needed to. So you could go in and you could throw on a flow motion, get the effect here, and you could play around with the amount of that, have the head being sucked away and exploding, or being brought back to normal. And let's see what that looks like. So there's all sorts of things you can horse around with and play around with. The other thing I'm going to show you here in the dyno. If I want the dyno character moving, quick way to do that. Okay, so I picked the dyno. Last thing I'm going to show you here is this pin tool. So the similar icon to the puppet warp tool in Photoshop, there's a puppet pin tool in After Effects. So I just go along and I click pins on different parts of my thing here, go to my selection tool, and I can animate parts of the character very quickly. Like everything in After Effects, there's tons of menus, so there's a lot of clicking. But I threw an effect on there. There's puppet. It's a crazy amount of down clicking, mesh, deform, and then there's your puppets. And whatever puppet you're on will be highlighted. Whatever pin you've highlighted here will be highlighted over here. So if I want to animate this one, click on it. It's puppet pin 1. Open that up. Position the pen here, and I could move that head up and down if I needed to. And there you go. I'm going to hit spacebar. You can make things look pretty crazy and bad really quickly in the program. So that is it. There's some basics of like puppet pinning, some weird flow motion. I don't know why I threw that on, but you get the idea that you can start tinkering around in the program if you want.